Welcome back to the deep dive. We're about to plunge into, well, a really fascinating collection of ideas, all centered around something deeply personal but, utterly universal, inner transformation.
Sounds great.
Our source material for this journey today, it comes from excerpts in a book called Last in the Evening, 365 Relaxing Moments to Enter the Night Consciously. Now, these passages are drawn from talks by Osho, and they're presented as these short chronological readings, specifically chosen, it seems, to bring self-awareness and help explore our inner world, especially before sleep.
That's right. And you can think of them almost like daily reflections, stepping stones maybe, intended to guide the reader toward understanding these concepts of inner transformation and consciousness.
Okay.
So our mission in this deep dive really is to act as your guides. We want to pull out the most important insights from these passages, maybe connect some dots between them.
Yeah, give a sort of shortcut.
Exactly. Offer you a shortcut to understanding the key ideas about self-awareness, looking within, and approaching life, and, well, what this material calls godliness.
Right. We're not just summarizing here. We're aiming to distill the core nuggets, those really impactful takeaways, so you get the essence without, getting lost in the sheer volume of 365 potential readings.
It's quite a lot to sift through otherwise.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If we zoom out for a second, what does this material tell us is the fundamental, the central idea it really wants to get across?
Well, the absolute core concept right there at the beginning of this journey they outline is that real education isn't what we typically think it is.
How so?
It's not about piling up external knowledge, learning about the moon, the sun, historical dates, geography facts, that kind of thing.
Okay.
The sources present that sort of external knowledge as, well, almost secondary, maybe even rubbish is a word they use, compared to the primary concern.
Which is?
Knowing yourself. Knowing the knower.
That's a pretty radical shift in perspective right there.
Yeah.
And the sources, they use a specific term, sannyas, to describe the beginning of this path. What does that actually mean in this context? Because it feels like it's being redefined here.
It absolutely is redefined.
Yeah.
As used in these texts, sannyas isn't about the conventional idea of renunciation, giving up possessions or retreating from the world like a traditional monk.
Right.
It's presented much more simply as the conscious decision to bring self-awareness into your life.
Just a decision.
A commitment, really, to give time and energy to inner exploration and even, they say, inner celebration. It's positioned as the very first step on this path of real education, learning about who you fundamentally are.
And it seems to be about a fundamental reorientation too, doesn't it? Ordinary humanity, as described here, is extrovert, always focused outward.
Yes.
And the path is moving in the complete opposite direction, becoming introvert.
Precisely. It's turning the gaze like 180 degrees inward. But, and this is crucial, the sources are careful to emphasize this isn't about being against the world.
Or withdrawing permanently. The idea presented is that once you are deeply rooted in your own being, once you've found that inner center, then you can engage with the world fully.
So you can go back out.
Exactly. You can live in the marketplace, as the text put it, and your inner peace remains undisturbed. You're no longer really harmed by the external chaos because you're settled within yourself. But the first step always is settling within.
And the texts offer that powerful, most classic image to drive this home. The kingdom of God, the real riches. It isn't out there somewhere.
No.
It is within you.
Which instantly changes the entire search, doesn't it? It puts the ultimate treasure, the source of fulfillment, not as something external you need to acquire,
Right.
but as an intrinsic part of your inner reality that just needs to be, well, uncovered.
Okay, that connects strongly then to how the sources talk about the word God. They say it's become problematic. Why do they say that? Well, according to these passages, the word has been, heavily co-opted and distorted over centuries. It's loaded with religious jargon, often exploited by priests.
Right, institutionalized.
Exactly. The texts mention the idea of a Christian God or a Hindu God, and they call this the ultimate in absurdity. Because in their view, putting any adjective on it immediately limits something that is inherently boundless.
So if it's not a personal, adjective-laden entity, what's the original meaning these sources are pointing towards?
The suggestion is the original meaning was much more about the beyond vastness, infinite existence, something unbounded fundamentally without an adjective.
Okay.
The argument presented is that priests made God seem far away and personal, put him somewhere up there, very distant,
Mm-hmm.
specifically to make themselves indispensable as mediators, as agents, representatives.
Right, the middlemen.
If that ultimate reality is actually close to your heart, really close, then there's no need for all that infrastructure, the church, the priests, that whole system.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. How do these texts then connect this vast kind of abstract concept, this beyond, to something as immediate and felt as love?
Yeah, that's a key connection they make. Love is presented as being incredibly close, very close to the heart, like the heartbeat itself.
Wow.
It's described as giving you the first taste of the beyond, that initial glimpse of that vastness.
Ah,
The passages even suggest a pretty radical practice. Create love and forget all about God.
forget about God.
That's what they say. And the fascinating promise that follows is if you focus on cultivating love, really deepening it, then one day you will encounter him everywhere.
So it shifts it.
It completely shifts it from a distant, abstract idea to a profound, felt inner experience that's directly accessible through love.
The sources use such vivid pictures, too, for this godliness or divine functioning. They describe it in things like, the sun rising, a cuckoo calling, a rose flower opening,
Beautiful images.
the eyes of lovers, or even a dancer losing himself completely in the dance. It's presented not as the creator of life, but as life itself.
Yes.
Like a dancer who is the dance. They're inseparable. There's that powerful line, this whole earth is full of God.
It's a perspective that just dissolves the idea of a separate creator, presiding over existence. And it replaces it with this sense of the divine being utterly immanent, present in everything and as everything. And they connect this experience to other descriptions of ultimate reality you find in different traditions. Nirvana, truth, that oceanic feeling, silence.
So multiple words, same direction.
Exactly. No single word can fully capture it. The mystery remains. And notably, silence itself is presented as a form of prayer.
Silence is prayer.
Yes, like a bowing down to existence. It suggests true devotion isn't about asking for things, but just about being present and receptive to what is.
Okay, so if this ultimate reality, this bliss or godliness, is within us and kind of all around us, why aren't we experiencing it constantly? The sources point very clearly to specific barriers getting in the way.
They certainly do. And the first and perhaps the biggest barrier they highlight is the mind.
Ah, the mind.
It's described with some pretty strong language. A noisy, constantly chattering, crazy thing, busy without any business, inherently negative, often focused on dark things, always counting the thorns and the wounds instead of the roses and the blessings.
That sounds, well, quite familiar for many of us, I think. And the strategy these texts propose to deal with this restless mind, is it meditation?
Exactly. Meditation is presented, but not as a way to destroy the mind. It's more like a strategy to put the mind aside.
With parking a car.
Precisely like that analogy they use. Like you park a car in the garage and you use it only when you need it for practical purposes. The goal is mastery, learning to use the mind as a tool rather than being constantly driven by its incessant activity.
Okay. And another major barrier the sources focus on is the ego. They call it the only problem, the root of all those negative traits like greed, anger, jealousy. What exactly is the ego, according to these passages?
The ego is presented as the fundamental idea of being a separate unit,
Separate?
distinct and separate from the whole of existence, like a single dewdrop trying desperately to maintain its separation from the vast ocean. It might feel comfortable or cozy. Sometimes they describe it as a golden cage.
Okay.
But ultimately, that sense of separation limits our experience of true vastness and connection.
And where does this problematic ego come from, according to them?
The sources make a pretty strong claim here. They argue that society starts giving us a false identity right from childhood.
From the start.
Yeah. To survive, to fit in, we're made to compromise our inner truth. And this leads to deep-seated lies becoming ingrained in our very being. This conditioning, they say, is like being actively cheated or deceived by powerful figures, politicians, priests are mentioned, whose power, the sources suggest, really depends on people being gullible and willing to accept these false identities.
Wow.
Undoing this, they say, requires being reborn, essentially starting over completely from scratch.
The texts also draw a very sharp contrast, don't they, between external knowledge and what they call wisdom or innocence.
Very sharp contrast.
Knowledge, the kind from the head, is described as easy to accumulate, but paradoxically, it can actually hide our deeper ignorance.
Yeah, cover it up.
Cover up inner wounds, even make us blind to truth. Priests and scholars are mentioned again as examples of those who might have repressed their fundamental ignorance with this kind of borrowed knowledge.
And they contrast this starkly with wisdom, which they say comes from a totally different place, the heart.
The heart.
Wisdom, in this view, arises through the heart, through love, trust, and a kind of deep surrender to the whole. It's not accumulated facts. It's presented as an insight, a clarity, a profound understanding that happens within. True knowing, they suggest, happens not through the mind's activity, but through a thoughtless space, through meditation, when the mind is actually empty.
So emptiness is key.
Yes, and the first step towards this true knowing is the deep realization, I know nothing. This state of not knowing, this innocence, like a child full of wonder and awe,
Like a child?
with a clean, mirror-like consciousness, that's what the sources say allows you to reflect and ultimately become the truth. It's inherently liberating.
So if the mind and ego are the primary barriers, what is the way the sources repeatedly suggest we can actually experience this inner reality, this truth? It seems meditation is absolutely the central practice.
It is presented as the way, really. But meditation in this context isn't necessarily about sitting in a specific posture or chanting a particular mantra.
Right.
It fundamentally means awareness, alertness, watchfulness, witnessing. Simply observing your actions, your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations, all of it, without judgment.
Without judgment. That sounds key.
It's crucial. And through this continuous witnessing, the realization starts to dawn that you are the witness, separate from the body, separate from the mind, separate from the heart's emotions. This recognition is described as a complete 180-degree turn in your perception.
And this practice of witnessing, does it naturally lead to silence?
That's presented as the direct consequence, yeah. Meditation is said to lead to inner silence, and not just the absence of external noise, but a stillness of the mind itself, the stopping of that constant inner chattering.
Okay.
This inner silence is described in almost mystical terms, like the ultimate music, a music without sound.
How does this source suggest one actually practices this witnessing? It sounds simple, but maybe not so easy in practice.
The instruction given is pretty straightforward. Simply sit inside and watch your thoughts and feelings non-judgmentally. Be utterly indifferent, cool. Indifferent in the sense of not getting caught up. The key, they say, isn't to fight the mind or try to forcibly stop thoughts. It's simply to remain aloof, detached, observing without getting entangled in the drama.
Oh, okay.
The knack is learned, they say, by maintaining this cool, indifferent watchfulness, and this silence, this inner space that gets created is seen as the spring from which true prayer flowers.
And prayer here isn't asking for things.
No, not begging. It's described as that feeling of deep gratitude or a bowing down to existence itself. True prayer, from this perspective, is silence.
The text also mentioned that meditation is an act that takes practice, right?
Yeah.
And importantly, that it's about falling into deeper and deeper rest, relaxation, not concentration or strenuous effort.
That distinction is absolutely crucial. It's not about focusing on something intently. It's about relaxing into yourself, becoming utterly at ease.
Letting go.
Exactly, which allows you to finally encounter your own being. Meditation, in this sense, makes you capable of the ultimate step, which is described as this rush inward. It makes you spacious, receptive, sensitive, vulnerable, passionately inviting of the ultimate guest.
And the ultimate guest is...
Existence itself, godliness, whatever word you use for that ultimate reality.
There's also this rather compelling idea presented in the sources about living dangerously. How does that connect to the center path? It sounds a bit reckless.
It does sound that way, but living dangerously in this context isn't about recklessness in the external world, like driving too fast or something.
Okay.
It means consistently choosing to move from the known, the familiar patterns of the mind, the comfortable boundaries of the past, the ego's limitations into the unknown.
Stepping out.
Stepping out of your comfort zone, yes. It's described as risky because it requires courage, but also as absolutely necessary for inner growth and for finding bliss. The sources say cowards only vegetate. To live dangerously, they suggest, is to live a divine life, constantly pushing beyond fear and the limitations of what you already know yourself to be.
And finally, they talk about choiceless awareness. What's that about?
Yes. This is presented as a state that arises from deep witnessing, from that practice we talked about. It means accepting everything in existence exactly as it is, without imposing your judgments or divisions on it.
No good, bad.
Dropping the dualities like good, bad, life, death, dark, light, and seeing only the underlying unity, the one reality manifesting in all its forms. This state of purity, they call it, comes from simply watching the mind without choosing one thought or feeling over another.
Hmm.
It's described as a state where nothing external can contaminate you. It's liberation from that constant internal conflict of judgment.
Okay, moving from the path itself, the sources frequently return to the idea of bliss as the fruit, the result of this inner journey. What exactly is this bliss, and how is it connected?
Bliss in these texts isn't presented like a reward you get at the very end. It's more like our very nature, our inherent state, almost our fundamental goal in the sense that it's what we are actually meant to be.
Our default state.
Kind of, yeah. It's described as the natural consequence or a byproduct of simply being conscious. It's like nourishment to the soul, the inner sustenance.
So it arises spontaneously from that state of being rather than something you strive to achieve externally.
Exactly. It comes from inner integrity, from being in harmony and attunement with existence, from being in accord with your true nature.
Okay.
It arises from that profound realization that you are separate from the changing phenomena, the wheel of day and night, birth and death. Remembering you are the unchanging witness behind it all. The sources also tie it to taking radical responsibility for your life. Recognizing that if you created your own misery through your past choices and conditioning,
Then you can create bliss.
then you inherently possess the capacity to create bliss and ecstasy as well. It puts the power back in your hands.
The texts also make an interesting link between this state and creativity. How does that work?
Yes. Contributing something to life, creating something, whether it's, a simple meal, a beautiful garden, a piece of art, anything really is presented as a deep joy.
Right.
And as a way of participating in God's being, in the creative energy of existence itself. But the ultimate act of creativity, according to these passages, is the flowering of your own consciousness. This inner blossoming is seen as the true, most direct bridge to godliness, maybe even more significant than any external prayer or ritual.
And there's the idea of being open to receiving existence as gifts, too.
That's a big one. Existence is portrayed as constantly showering us with gifts, life, love, beauty, truth not based on our merit, but purely out of its abundance, like a cloud showering rain. The texts say receiving these gifts, especially the gift of bliss, can actually be difficult for the ego.
Why is that?
Because it feels like a kind of humiliation or embarrassment to the ego to just accept something freely given without earning it. But they emphasize that the emptier you are, the more space you have within, the better you are able to receive these abundant gifts.
How does all this transformation relate to the idea of freedom?
Well, knowing you are part of the whole, that you are not that separate ego unit, it dissolves that illusion of separation. And that brings a tremendous freedom, a feeling of immense vastness. Dissolving the ego basically transports you from the cramped, small world of the individual personality to the vast, unbounded reality.
Okay.
And living in the moment, free from the automatic patterns of the past, which the sources call mechanical reaction, allows for a conscious response to life.
Response, not reaction.
Exactly. And this inner freedom allows you to become, paradoxically, nobody.
Nobody.
Meaning you are no longer defined by a fixed identity, a label, and this state of being nobody makes you untouchable by external insult or hurt. It's described as entering the world of the immortals.
Wow. The sources use such powerful metaphors for human potential, don't they? Man is born as ordinary mud, but they say he contains a lotus.
Beautiful, isn't it?
He contains the whole sky and oceans, like a dewdrop containing the entire ocean within it.
Yes, the potential for perfection, for realizing the state of being a god, is described as innate, present within every human being from birth.
But it's just potential.
It's potential, exactly, like gold hidden in a mine or an uncut diamond. It needs a methodology, an inner effort towards becoming more conscious, to move from potential to actual. This conscious effort, this inner work, that's presented as the path itself.
So this path ultimately leads to knowing your true reality.
Precisely. It's knowing, experientially, not just intellectually, that you are a god, free from the limited dreams of being just a beggar or just a man or woman, white or black, poor or rich, all those labels.
Right.
This isn't presented as a belief system you just adopt. It's an experience to be lived, a transformation into the state of being described in figures like a Christ or a Buddha, realizing that ultimate nature within yourself.
Okay, moving from that profound internal experience, how does this vision translate into how someone actually lives their daily lives? It's not just about sitting in meditation all day, right?
Absolutely not. A core element is the emphasis on love, but again, love viewed maybe differently than usual.
How so?
It's about loving the whole of existence. letting your love be unaddressed, not directed only at a specific person or object, but just being a state of loving, radiating outward. The point is that you are loving.
Interesting.
And loving yourself, accepting yourself fully, is presented as the crucial first step for any real transformation and growth. If you can't love yourself, how can you love existence?
Yes.
And deepening this capacity for unaddressed love can, according to the text, lead to experiencing existence itself more directly, and even getting glimpses of immortality. Love, in this broad, unconditional sense, is called the most godly phenomenon on earth.
There's also a surprisingly strong connection made between joy and laughter and the divine in these texts.
It's quite striking, isn't it? The sources state it very provocatively. To be sad is to be a sinner. To be cheerful is to be a saint.
Wow, that's strong.
It is. Wholehearted laughter, they say, makes life holy. Being laughter itself and being love itself is presented as a direct way of entering the divine.
This emphasis on cheerfulness and laughter seems to lead right into the call to rejoice in life.
It's a central theme, definitely. It means participating fully, dancing with the wind, the rain, the trees, seeing religion not confined to sacred books or buildings,
Right.
but spread all over existence, in rainbows, in a peacock's dance, in the call of a cuckoo. Religion, in this view, is alive, vibrant, and you need to be fully alive yourself in a state of bliss or aliveness to truly connect with it.
So your inner state reflects the outer.
Yes. A peak experience of bliss, they suggest, connects you so deeply to existence that it provides this inner proof that life is so much more than just matter.
And this seems to extend even to appreciating the small, ordinary things in life, transforming them somehow.
Yes, taking ordinary activities like eating, walking, even sleeping, and infusing them with delight by doing them with presence and joy. Mindfully, joyfully. And when you bring this quality to the simple acts, the text suggests truth isn't some distant, far-off goal. It comes closer in every moment, in every experience.
This feels deeply tied to the idea of accepting existence, just as it is.
Fundamentally, it's about seeing everything that happens as a gift, whether it appears good or bad to the mind. Stopping the complaining.
Yeah, the complaining mind.
Loving existence in all its manifestations. The entire universe is seen as the real scripture, full of sermons and stones. There's no division between the mundane and the sacred. Everything is divine. Rejoicing means not differentiating between the manifest world and the unmanifest source. It's all one.
The sources bring these ideas together in that vision of what they call the Zorba the Buddha. Can you unpack that?
Yes. That's a powerful metaphor they use. It represents a kind of new human being, potentially. Someone who can combine the joyful, creative, full participation in everyday life, like Zorba the Greek, dancing, singing, celebrating the moment.
The earthy aspect.
Exactly, with the inner silence, the awareness, the meditation of a Buddha, the inwardness.
So integrating both.
It's about integrating the outer celebration with the inner being, living fully in both dimensions simultaneously, not choosing one over the other.
And finally, they talk about a life of constant movement and adventure, not settling down.
In a sense, yes. It's about always flowing, moving, always reaching for the farthest star, not necessarily as a fixed goal to achieve, but simply enjoying the journey, the process of exploration itself.
The journey is the destination.
Kind of. Without ultimate goals, they say, failure becomes irrelevant. It's just part of the adventure, something you learn from. The emphasis is on constantly shedding the old, the familiar, and courageously choosing the new, the unknown, the potentially dangerous, because that's where authentic growth happens.
So embracing uncertainty.
Totally. It's about not expecting tomorrow to be just like today, but embracing change, unpredictability, and the constant unfolding of existence.
So bringing together the many threads from this deep dive into these passages, the core message seems to be this profound redirection, doesn't it?
It really does.
The sources present a vision where ultimate truth, fulfillment, blissed I, they aren't found by seeking outside yourself or adhering to external dogma or performing prescribed rituals.
No, none of that.
Instead, they're found by deliberately turning inward, cultivating self-awareness, consciousness, through practice like meditation and witnessing, diligently working to dissolve the ego's illusion of separation.
Yeah, that's key.
And then translating that inner shift into a life of, radical love, uninhibited joy, authentic creativity, and deep gratitude for existence in all its forms.
It's a path that definitely acknowledges the difficulties. It talks about the necessary confrontation with inner darkness, the dark night of the soul, perhaps. But it promises that passing through this leads not to emptiness, but to an experience of immense vastness, freedom, and the profound lived reality that you are not separate from the divine whole, that you are, in essence, that very godliness you might have been seeking outside.
These passages really offer a powerful, maybe even challenging perspective on identity, religion, the fundamental search for meaning. So a final thought perhaps for you listening. What does it mean for you to really consider that the kingdom of God might indeed be already within, waiting not to be built, but simply to be discovered by turning your attention inward?
Yeah.
And that maybe much of the suffering you experience might be in some way an illusion created by clinging to a false, outward-focused sense of separation?
Yeah.
Something to ponder.
Definitely something to sit with. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of inner transformation based on these fascinating texts.